I want to get you breaking news right now in the trial of disgraced music mogul Sean Diddy Combs. Week 2 of that trial now underway. You're looking at video of people making their way into the courtroom earlier this morning. Right now, we know singer and former collaborator Don Richard, who you see there, is being cross-examined. The defense picking up where prosecutors left off last week with Richard's lawsuit against Combs. Now, she started her testimony on Friday recounting a terrifying 2009 incident at Diddy's home. She says she watched Combs try to hit Cassie Ventura with a black skillet before wrapping her around the neck and then dragging her up the stairs. Now, last week, we also heard from Diddy's ex-girlfriend, Cassie Ventura herself. When she took the stand, she shared very graphic details about their relationship. Ventura told the jury her time with Diddy was marked by violence, drug abuse, and freak-offs. So let's talk about it on this Monday morning as it gets underway once again. For more, let's bring in business and entertainment attorney Seth Berenzweig. Seth, good morning to you. Welcome this morning. A lot to unpack here. We learned a whole lot in week 1 about Combs and Cassie Ventura, their relationship, the text messages. It goes on and on. How well do you believe the prosecution is laying out its case so far? And did it move the needle in regards to making that argument about racketeering and sex trafficking charges that Combs is facing?
I think they moved the needle, and quite frankly, I think the prosecution buried the needle. This was a bombshell week that occurred last week. Cassie Ventura, of course, was the star witness, and she talked about really opening up the entire floodgates, which is ultimately an avalanche of evidence that's falling down on Diddy. She talked about the course of her relationship over approximately a decade, and her testimony about sex, drugs, and violence and the coercive nature of her role in that was really backed up by a number of things. So let's talk about the 2016 tape from a hotel in California where we see in color Diddy beating her up, dragging her by the hair, pulling her back into the hotel room when she was trying to get out of one of these freak-off parties. It was incredibly vivid testimony. She was on the stand for about 4 days, and it was corroborated. You talk about Dawn Richard. She is testifying today. When she testified for a bit on Friday, she also corroborated that and talked about more violence and dragging her by the hair into other rooms. There was also tellingly an FBI agent that testified last week. I thought that her testimony was particularly compelling. And what was so fascinating about this was that Diddy was in a room in New York. He was about to get arrested and to be brought in after he had been arraigned. You would think that he was going to be acting a little bit like a Boy Scout that day, but the FBI agent testified that when they came in the room and arrested him and they conducted a search, they found $9,000 drugs and sex lubricants. This guy has epic issues with regard to arrogance, and it's just absolutely unbelievable how clueless he is. So it was a very vivid week in trial, and the bombshells will continue to drop this week.
And speaking of this week, what do you expect we'll hear from the stand in terms of where they're going to move with the narrative? Because they do have to connect all of this bad behavior to coercive racketeering, a conspiracy. I mean, that's the big elephant in the room that has to be proven. So what do you expect we'll hear and find out this week?
Yeah, you just really nailed it on the head. It's all about corroboration. Now, keep in mind that even if it wasn't coercive, which it was, apparently, it's still a sex trafficking ring that crossed over state lines, hence the federal court jurisdiction. So he'd be prosecuted on that alone. But you're right, the coercion element for the racketeering piece is what really brings it up to a whole other level. Sentencing guidelines have this case at 30 to life. So what they need to do is they need to have corroboration on coercion. So they're going to have Richard. She's going to be testifying in that regard. There's going to be other people that were within the massive business criminal enterprise. They're going to be testifying about coercion, unwanted sex acts, They're going to be having more people that'll be bringing that evidence to light. It's really going to continue to be an avalanche of evidence. I don't see how Diddy gets out of this. It's going to be very difficult for him. There are a few elements of evidence that they may try to bring it down on the coercion piece, but you're absolutely right. That's really one of the focal points and pivot points in the case, and we'll see that focus continuing to go through the trial as it progresses this week. I think the case will be over in a couple of weeks. The media reports of it going on for a few months is a little bit over the top. Federal court's usually a little faster than state court, so I think that the case will conclude a little bit faster than some anticipate.
Well, Seth, we're out of time. Very quickly, yes or no, does Diddy take the stand?
Perhaps, yes. He shouldn't, but he probably will have to, because that's the only way that the defense will have any evidence to be able to buttress their position. It's rare that you see that happen. It may happen. It's definitely possible.
Interesting. All right. We will continue to watch it as it plays out. Seth Berenzweig, thank you so much for joining us this morning.